celebrating the resilience of the indigenous peoples of the Caribbean, advocating for reparations for native genocide and enslavement. That is the theme of this year's Indigenous Peoples Conference 2025. And to give us more insight, we are joined by Chief Ricardo Bharath Hernandez of the Santa Rosa First Peoples community and representing all mansions of Rastafari, Mr. Glenroy Halls. Good morning and welcome to the Now, gentlemen.
Good morning, and thank you so very much for having us.
It is absolutely necessary because this is quite the conversation, a timely one that echoes sentiments across the globe, where multiple nations are looking at discussing First Peoples and other indigenous groups' needs for reparations. So if we were to go into the conversation immediately, Chief, could you give us a bit of a brief description on what reparations would be defined as?
Well, reparations basically is, repairing the wrongs of the past, correcting some of the ills that were inflicted upon the native peoples and basically also the people of African descent through the slave trade and so on. So it is an effort to correct some of these ills, to make them right in what we can use for today's situation to empower a people that have suffered at the hands of the colonizers. Basically, this is what it is. And as you explore, there are many different ways that this could be achieved.
Fair. There are many different voices in the conversation as well, as the conference is hosted by the Trinidad and Tobago Reconstituted National Committee for Reparations, a subcommittee of the CARICOM Reparations Commission in collaboration with the Caribbean Organization for Indigenous Peoples. It means that a number of groups are coming together to have that conversation. And Mr. Halls, as one representing all mansions of Rastafari, what are some of the discussions that will be had on the 6th and 7th of October?
Well, again, as Chief indicated earlier on, the National Committee on Reparation, together in collaboration with the First People, the First People of Santa Rosa, the Caribbean Organization of Indigenous People and the CARICOM Reparation Organization are responsible for the conference.
Right.
For the conference. And some of the conversations there, the purpose of the conference is really to inform on strategies, information and strategies toward the development of the indigenous First People throughout the Caribbean. For as you know, the indigenous people of Trinidad and Tobago have suffered genocide under slavery. And the time has reached where, certain amends must be made. Hence the reason why when you speak about reparation, it can be described as how an individual people or society attempts to make amends or remedy for wrongdoings. So it's a broad spectrum in conversation.
Absolutely. And as we identified, it is across the Caribbean, well, across the globe, of course, but specifically focusing on Caribbean people. There is a 10-point plan according to CARICOM. And so, Chief, if you can give us an idea of some of those points that are entailed in that plan, it would probably shine a light on some of the areas of focus, I suppose. Are there any that you could share with us this morning?
Well, some of what we're going to be focusing on is the demography of the indigenous peoples of the region. Mm-hmm. The First People's spirituality that we want to focus on, that of course most of it was lost. Human rights issues, including land rights, determination under government structures, healthcare and so on, native history and languages, the economic marginalization that we continue to face, mm-hmm. With an aim to be empowered economically. Impact on the environment. As you know, indigenous people and the environment work hand in hand. It is part of their culture. Heritage villages, how that can help to preserve the indigenous First Peoples culture and so on. and all the industries and technologies that will work towards empowering indigenous peoples. All these will be issues for discussion
Right.
under reparations.
No,
In
no,
this
that's a lot to
conference.
talk about. So I understand why it will
Yes.
take place over the course of 2 days.
2 days,
Is there
yes.
perhaps a schedule or an order in which we can expect certain conversations to take place? Perhaps if you can't make one day, coming in at another day, or should attendees seek to attend or involve themselves on both days?
Well, yes, there will be 5 panels. Of course, we will have the opening ceremony on the first day that will take the greater part of the morning, with different speeches by different persons coming in from the CARICOM Secretariat. We expect some government officials, representative of indigenous organizations throughout the region, representing the COIP and, of course, ourselves. So that will take place over the morning period on the first day. In the afternoon, I think there are 2 panels, and on the second day there are 4 panels, 3 to 4 panels that will spread across that day. I cannot remember the order in which they are at this time. I don't have the document before me, but some of what I have mentioned will be discussed in all these different panels by different presenters who
Okay.
have been invited, who have submitted their papers and so on for presentation.
Fantastic. Mr. Halls, in terms of some of the derivatives from these discussions, what do you hope to arrive at after the end of the 2 days?
Well, again, as I say, the conference is designed for information and strategies. And hence the reason, the indigenous people of the Caribbean have, still, as some of the survivors of the indigenous people, still remain traumatized landless, and obviously are the most marginalized social group within the region. So the conclusion or the summary of the conference is really to advance the indigenous people's development program, throughout the Caribbean. Since when you look at what has happened to them in terms of their lands and appropriation, what has happened to them during slavery and all these things, the time has come where, the younger generation needs to know more about the first inhabitants within the region. Since that the first people, if you look at a historical review, the first people are the early inhabitants of Trinidad and Tobago, La Trinidad, La Trinity, Kyrie, who had existed here for 6,000 years before the arrival of Christopher Columbus. So there's a rich history so that the children could know much more about the first people within the Caribbean, their ways of life, their culture, their law, and how they preserve their cultural heritage in terms of the ecosystem and all these things, since today we face so much climate change. So that life of the indigenous first people is very important for our younger generation. And even today, the conversation among the indigenous people is really to re-enhance, the relevance of the first people in the Caribbean at this point in time. It is necessary in coming together in a mass order.
Definitely necessary. And so we thank you, gentlemen, for making sure that these conversations continue. But Chief, you were telling us that it is 2 days. Can you remind me of a start time?
Yes, on the first day, it starts at 8:30, and on the second day at 9 a.m. Yeah, and this will all take place at the Nales Library that is situated in La Horquetta, Arima.
Fantastic. I understand
And
it would also... Forgive
yes,
me.
go ahead. Yeah. No, I just wanted to say that the conference is just part of a week of activities that we have every year.
Yes.
And the week begins, of course, on the 6th with the conference, and the 7th, and then the other days, there are different activities leading up to the 14th, which is the actual day of recognition of our first peoples here in Trinidad. Right. So during that period, we'll have a number of activities spread across the country, culminating, as I said, on the 14th at the High Arima Monument in Arima. So it is just part of a week of activities.
Now, if we wanted to participate in this 2-day conference or any other activities up to the 14th, how can we do so?
Well, of course, we have shared the itinerary online, different platforms and so on. And I guess through the media, maybe tomorrow we would have another printout informing people of the different activities.
Well, gentlemen, again, I thank you for doing the good work of sharing the information, of making sure that the conversations that need to be had are continued. And I wish you the best of luck as you continue to have those conversations over the course of the next few weeks. We will also be able to tune into the first day, I understand, via UETV, so that if you can't physically attend, you can virtually. But for now, the Indigenous Peoples Conference 2025 is taking place at Horquetta Library on the 6th and the 7th. You can be a part of the conversation as we look forward to the future. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us this morning. The Now Morning Show continues, and we've got even more conversations you want to be a part of, so come back after these messages.